Do you feel emotionally connected to your plants? As if in the process of caring for them, they as well are caring for you? What about planty DIYs and thrifting for plant items? If I have your attention, then the Plants by Wade Lee podcast is for you. Join me, plant friends, as we dig deep and experience the magic of plants. Hey plant people, thank you so much for tuning in to the 10th episode of the Plants by Wade Lee podcast. I have Derek Haynes, the chocolate botanist, on Instagram. You know him from debunking the craziest myths and things that you hear in the planty world. I mean, we could go on and on. I have a list right here. You said we ice cakes, not plants.
I did say that.
Yeah.
I did say that. You pays attention, I tell you what.
Of course. I mean, I follow you and I love your content. I think that some of it, I'm like, what? Did you just pull something out of the vacuum cleaner and you're going to put it in the soil? I said, I gotta keep watching this.
You be watching everything I do. A lot of stuff that people wouldn't necessarily think about is compostable, right? And although I don't recycle as much as the 90s childhood me thought I would be at this point, because
Right.
I thought that I would have been like a representative of the Planeteers, obviously Kwame the black one, and even though I preferred my tea, because I was like, heart, the animals, but I would have been doing something like that, and I don't recycle as much as I do, but I compost what I can, and especially when I'm like, instead of sending this out to waste, to be in a plastic bag, and whatever nutrients are stuck in the soil, dog hair, vegetation I dropped on the ground, let me compost that and recycle that back into nature as I can.
Yeah, and I wasn't trying to be rude when you were talking, but I was looking down because there was something that I wanted to ask you about, and it was the... I don't know the word because I had never heard of it before, Derek, until I saw it today. It's the composting with meats and stuff? Meat
Bokashi.
and... Yeah, wait, what? One more time?
Bokashi.
Bokashi.
So
Yeah.
mention it because I have the bag right here. So this is how you spell the word bokashi.
Oh.
And basically you are able to compost, like, not necessarily like a butcher's mart of meat, but you're able to do not that are not traditionally used in a traditional compost pile. So I can do dairy, I can do oil and grease, I can do a little bit of meat here and there. As big as I am, I don't leave much meat on the bone when I eat. But if you do, then you got a problem.
No, look at my size. I mean, I'm a big boy too, so...
Look, I'm going to say, if you eat a chicken wing and there's still meat on that bone, there's a problem, okay?
Right.
I see people, they take 2 bites and they're like, done. Nope, there's still meat up there. Stop playing. But regardless of that, you can do that. And I've done it, and I have a couple of them beside me. One drum actually beside me right now that was going. It's a cool process to do inside the house, and it's relatively cheap to start. Like, you can buy some setups or you can just make some setups. It's not even that expensive.
So it's not like your leftover T-bone you're throwing into this bag. Like, it's not that kind of meat.
So it is, but it's something where what I'm doing now is I'm trying to figure out, without being too much of a hoarder as I can be, how to utilize most of the food waste I can back into my garden, my patio outside, and the plants I have indoors, right? So with some bones and things of that nature, you can do it. If I had a yard, and one day, God bless it, I will, and I had the acreage I plan on having weighed, then for sure I would put the bone in there and go from there. Now, the bone isn't going to break down in the 2 weeks that you usually set up your compost bin, 2 weeks to a couple of months. It's something that will break down over time once you bury those scraps. And, the bokashi, the microorganisms, and all that does is work. And for those of you who are wondering, bokashi is a microorganism. Well, it's a practice, really, where you take these granules that are inoculated with these microorganisms that can break down your dairy, your meat, your oil, and your other food scraps. And the general concept is when you're composting outdoors, You want the microorganisms that are breaking down and composting your vegetables, your plant scraps, whatever, to outcompete, to be more in abundance than the ones that are making rot go on. So the way I think about it is, if I go to a club, right, and I go to a club, and I'm gonna make it about race because people never want to talk about race. I'm gonna make it about race. People gonna get pissed off. I don't care. Send me the death threats. Do it. Okay. In my chat, on the comments of my post to make my engagement go up. But if I go into a club that may be of a different culture than me, right? One that is in Asia, okay? I'm not gonna necessarily hear the Anita Baker I want to hear when I'm
Right.
in the club. Okay, even if they are people that listen to that generation, right? So they're out competing me for musical choices because they're going to make different references that I may not get or I may get and be like, ah, whatever. And there is a chance that somebody may be like, play that Sweet Love by Anita Baker, but outside of that, it may not happen, right? In that similar way, we have these bokashi granules, these in these inoculated situations, so we can have what we want to be more in abundance and break down the dairy, the meat, and the oil, right? And that way it doesn't go rancid, it doesn't smell bad. You have it in an anaerobic environment where you're basically keeping air from touching the top of it. It's a whole little setup. You're draining off the juice and everything. And once you get it, the bucket full and it's sat for 2 weeks, you bury this outdoors in your garden space, in your yard, wherever it is, or add it to your regular compost. And from there, it continues to break down. So I've used some in, because I'm wild and I'm crazy. I do a lot of wild stuff. I have a
Mm-hmm.
soil in the second bedroom. I'll mix it into there to allow it to break down. And because I recycle soil, and I used to work in a place where I used to get so much soil, I never buy really soil anymore. I just buy components and stuff I may need. So
Right. And just
I'm
add
using,
it in.
I'm just adding it in, and then I try to give a lot of this away. If you live closer, you would get a lot of soil from me.
I love that.
Shift it away so I can like get to a reasonable amount of soil in this house.
So this goes to my next question because we see a lot, like the debunking that you do, about just throwing your eggshells and your bananas on, you know, your garden. This isn't breaking it down and making it, making it feed into the soil, right?
No. So when you take your eggshells and you just sprinkle them on top of your soil like y'all's cousin Hamilton tells y'all to do, what they're not showing you, pirates that take these videos with AI voices and they repost them up. What
Yeah.
happens is the people don't tell you the true science of it all, right? Over time, those eggshells and banana peels on the top of the soil will eventually break down, right? But there's more likely for there to be, depending on your situation, rot or attracting of other pests to come out, right? If you're just
Right.
taking shells and you're not sanitizing them and washing them properly, you may attract certain rodents that most of us don't want to deal with around your stuff. Similar to banana peels, the rodents are going to be like, look at what this human did for me, and be like, let me go out here and eat it. Versus if you go and place it under the soil while certain rodents may still dig up and be all in your gardens. It's putting it where it needs to be, right? And it's setting it up to be composted and broke down if it's buried under the soil. But even then with eggshells, it takes time for that calcium to be released. Go ahead.
Well, yeah. So I recently did a video because I've been seeing the whole feed the bananas. Bananas are big feeders. And I was watching your videos and I was like, I'm doing this exact same thing. Like, I put everything that I should have thrown out of my refrigerator into the blender, blended it up, and then I poured it on. I have the reel on my Instagram right now. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I need to come clean about this to Derek because, but or is that okay? Like, because I see a lot of farmers are just putting it into the back
You,
into the earth.
I'm not going to say these people ain't farmers because I don't know who it is, and maybe they do have a farm license and farm and they've been farming forever. But Dr. Dre called himself doctor, and I wouldn't get no prescriptions from him, right? So when it comes to what some of these farmers are doing and some of our elders have done historically, right, who were using agriculture as a means of survival, not just like financial, but actually, I need to feed my families. I need to make sure we can eat. and be able to can and everything else of that nature, they used every piece of what they had trying to put it back in, so there was no love lost, no nutritional loss. And some of that stuff wasn't as effective as they said it was. It was just over time, if you do something wrong for 10 years and it kind of eventually makes itself right in the 11th year, you're going to be like, yay, everything is good, right? When it comes to you blending up your scraps, the thing I'll say is if you are blending it up into a smoothie, a compost smoothie, we'll call it that, right?
Mm-hmm.
You are putting it outdoors into your compost pile. That would help it to be more easily broken up and digested and made into compost by your microorganisms because you're literally like making it already easily attainable and shrinking that surface area of whatever that vegetation was, right?
Right, right.
If you are saying, I take this stuff and then I slather it all over my soil, then that, my friend, unfortunately, is not as beneficial as we would like it to be. It's not really overworked because, again,
Even if you're working it into the soil.
even if you work it into the soil, because what happens is if you are, I generally have a plant around me that I can move and show this off with. If you are, I need one. I have so many plants around me. We're going to use this sad example right here. This sad example is a ZZ, okay?
Yeah.
This, if I work this into the soil, right, and I'm working it, those microorganisms are going to be like, yay, but it's going to take some time for them to break all of that down. And the thing about a
Right.
compound, when you're putting it out there is, think about the club situation I talked about. If
Yeah,
you go
yeah.
into the club and there's one jam you got to hear, what's that one song you want to hear when you walk into the club? You say, I got to, but there's already 50 people in line who are asking for every other song that you don't want to hear or that you've already heard before or that you're like, dang, this song makes me sad. I'm going to leave. This club ain't popping. It's that same situation. When you
Right.
are putting that stuff, even if you're working into the soil, you are letting the opportunity for the good microbes and the bad microbes to compete. And for some of you who are out there listening and watching, the good microbes won, luckily enough for you, and your plants didn't rot and die, right? But for some of the rest of you, your plants went up to the upper room, okay?
Right.
They is up there with Aretha Franklin and Tina Turner, okay? Rolling down the river, they might as well be because you sold them upriver and you put all that stuff in there. And they end up attracting rotten mold. And rotten mold are fungi. That fungus is near your roots. It's going to do what mold does, which is I want to break all of this down, turn this into what I want to turn it into. And when all of that stuff, including your roots, those precious roots that are supplying your plants with the water they need, are broken down, you end up saying, well, why is my plant dead? In addition to, some of us do this, and you do it indoors or you do it outdoors, and you're like, where did all these fungus gnats come from? Because the
Yeah.
fungus like dinner, yay, and they go
Yeah,
out,
yeah.
they eat.
Yeah, I don't know if you know Rachel Tenney. She has the Plant School podcast. She's so lovely, but she had gotten the Lumi, right? That's what it's called, the Lumi.
Uh-huh.
And that's the thing that happened. She got the compost, put it on her houseplants, and she's like, wait, in days there was so many fungus gnats. And it's like,
It dries it out,
yeah, it's the dehydrator
right?
system, yeah. But this is what's happening. You're just throwing, So I'm just getting bugs in Florida, like
And
on
this
my banana tree.
and this is where when you get these bugs, so like the Luma, the electrical ones, I don't have a lot of it right now. If
Yeah.
any electrical composting system wants to send me one and I do a video, I'll do that. So, if you're listening, hit me up in my DMs. But I tried that at home because the general concept is you dry out the vegetation
Yeah.
to plant parts, whatever it is, to get it to pretty much like dehydrated.
Outside or in close to a window, so with the heat, and you're
I did it in the
mixing it
I did it in the oven
continually
because
in the oven.
I did it in the oven. So I dried everything out in the oven because I was like, so I'm a whole plant biologist, and this is like literally my degree, right? I'm
Right.
a scientist. I've worked in the field, and there's been times where I've had to say, for myself at home and for the work I've done, what am I trying to do, and how can I use what I have to get what I need, right? Whether it's a program on a computer to control a greenhouse, or whether it is there's this equipment that we want and we can't afford it, so let's break it down to the components. The components
Right.
are